In this module, we'll be talking about leadership, management, and ethics. So we're going to start with leadership. This is kind of a buzz topic. People want to talk about leadership all the time. And the reason for that is because it's such a crucial component of being successful. And having leadership qualities does not necessarily mean you have a leadership position. So it's something we can constantly work on and strive to be better at. And no leader is complete. It's not like it's a finished process. You can always improve. You can always get better. But there's some common traits that we find in leaders and things that really make a person stand out to show that they are ready for leadership positions or the actual titles that go along with that leadership. So the goal in this module is to really focus on things that you can do to start to become a leader in your own life, whether that's in your personal life or your work life, and to start practicing some of these qualities and characteristics that are important for you to succeed within the business world. So the first thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take a pause from the video, and I want you to actually make a list of different qualities and characteristics that you associate with being a leader. So just sit there and brainstorm. This is something we typically do in class, and I write them up on the board. You might write things, like perseverance or integrity or something along those lines, and write all those out. And as you're doing it, I also want you to consider, of all these qualities and characteristics that you put down, which do you think are the most crucial or the most important in order for leadership success? And what you pick actually says a lot about you, and it might also say things that either you're strong in and that you already really recognize as being great characteristics, or maybe there are qualities that you wish you had more of and that there's something you need to work on in the future. So definitely think about what those qualities are and what the characteristics are that you think are most crucial from that list that you create. So go ahead and pause your video now and do that. All right, so I'm guessing you probably didn't pause because I know people, but I hope you do. I hope you still practice that. I hope you still do it. I think it's a really good practice for understanding yourself and understanding what you want to accomplish in life. So to help out with that, there was this quote from the book that just really resonated with me, and I love it. The idea that experience is a hard teacher because she gives the test first and the lessons afterwards. And the truth is, when you are a leader, you have to make decisions for things that you've never seen before, things that you never thought would happen, whether it's in a crisis situation, such as, say, COVID-19 happening. How are you going to keep the business afloat, to having to make decisions like who do you fire or who do you let go because you can't maintain your entire operations. So that's a crisis situation, to the everyday mundane situations. When things happen, you have to be able to use these qualities and characteristics and skills to make decisions before you necessarily know what the right decision might have been. And so part of leadership is knowing, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and these are the strengths and weaknesses of everyone on my team, and this is how I'm going to hopefully reach some sort of strategic vision that I have, that I am sharing with the entire organization, that I'm sharing with all those that I'm leading, and that they're hopefully on board with what I'm doing. But this is really something to keep in mind, that as you experience something, you're sometimes going to have to make decisions without having all the knowledge, or you might make a bad decision and realize that later and have the accountability to say, you know what, I made a mistake. This is what I would do differently next time, but this is what I'm going to do now to mitigate the mistake that I made and something that I can do better in the future. And then I also wanted to add the leadership traits from the U.S. Marines. And what I want you to look at is, based on your own list you created, how is the list that you created different from the list that you see here from the Marines? Are there different qualities that you felt were the top 5 that are not in this list? So for example, if you picked things like empathy and compassion and caring and understanding, those qualities you're not going to see on this list. Does it mean that those qualities are less important? No, it simply means that there's a different way of manifesting different qualities and characteristics based on the kind of position you're in. If you're in the Marines, you're probably dealing with life and death situations, so the empathy and compassion maybe is less important than endurance and initiative and integrity and judgment. So it's more of where you are in your life, and the kind of impacts you're having on the people around you. And they are all leadership traits and skills. It just depends on the situation. I do like this list though. I think it's very comprehensive. I think it brings in a lot of very important qualities and traits that I didn't necessarily initially think of when I thought of leadership and I did my own brainstorming. For example, tact. the ability to say something to someone in a way that is going to be accepted. So sometimes in a tax situation, you're going to have very hard conversations that could be seen either as offensive or hurt someone's feelings or make it very challenging for them. So how do you say it in such a way that that information will be accepted? So for example, when I worked at the restaurant, anytime there was an employee who had hygiene issues. So if you're working around food, you don't want your server to be bringing food and maybe they're not bathing, they have body odor, maybe they're not doing something else, their hair isn't well kept. Whatever it is, you have to have that conversation with them, but in such a way that you show that caring and compassion. So I know there was one time I had to sit down with an employee and talk to her about brushing her teeth. Well, you have to have a lot of tact in that situation to not make that an offensive conversation. So part of being a leader is being able to take on those really challenging conversations and say it in a really acceptable way. Justice, integrity, judgment, all these things are really important factors in making sure that you are caring for the people that you are a leader for. So I love this list. I love that it exists and that you can compare it to your own list that hopefully you're creating and saying, do I really value those leadership traits? And what would that leadership trait mean for this situation? So I encourage you to go through each of these and say, do I have this trait? Do I value this trait? Would I put this on my list of top leadership traits and qualities? If you had to pick a top 5 traits from this list, which 5 would you pick and why? So really think through each of those different elements and say, okay, well, what is a leader and what can a leader accomplish?